Laura Kuenssberg was invited to ask a question at the Downing Street press conference, but instead of focusing on the pandemic, the political journalist saw her opportunity to grill Matt Hancock over Boris Johnson's recent sleaze accusations. After Ms. Kuenssberg asked whether Mr. Hancock believed the PM should resign, the health secretary shot her down by stating it was a COVID briefing and not the time or place for her questions. Mr. Hancock moved swiftly on as Ms. Kuenssberg's question was awkwardly ignored, which enraged the public and other journalists. Ms. Kuenssberg was invited to ask her question and said, if a serving government minister is found to have broken the rules on party funding or even law, should they resign? Mr. Hancock picked up what the political editor was hinting at and defended the government and Boris Johnson. He replied, I know that the Prime Minister answered lots of questions about this in the House of Commons, and given that this is a coronavirus press conference, you won't be surprised that I'm not going to add to the answers the Prime Minister has already given to the very excessive questioning. But the public vented their outrage online after the minister deliberately avoided the question which was asked of him. Daily Mirror deputy political editor Ben Glaze also used his question opportunity to ask Mr. Hancock why an inquiry into Boris Johnson's behavior has not begun. Mr. Glaze also skewered the health secretary, who he says has previously campaigned for a free press but shot down Ms. Kuenssberg's question by branding it irrelevant. He said, what's the point of us asking difficult questions if you're not going to engage with them? In response, Mr. Hancock said, the point of the press conference is the incredibly important progress we are making on coronavirus, which is without a doubt the most important thing facing the country. And if you have listened to the answers, you will have been given an illuminating description of where we are up to scientifically that is available. Mr. Hancock said it was right for journalists to ask questions, but that there were endless questions in the House of Commons during Prime Minister's questions which saw Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer relentlessly attack the PM. The health secretary told Mr. Glaze that he should focus on the things that really matter before moving on to answer his other questions. The Electoral Commission announced it would be investigating Mr. Johnson over the source of funds for Downing Street renovations. There are concerns that the refurbishment bill, costing several hundreds of thousands, may have been paid for by Tory donors and is therefore subject to being put on record and investigated. Electoral rules state any party donation that is more than £7,500 must be recorded and looked into by the Commission so that the money could not be used to bribe government officials. Many took to Twitter to criticize the health secretary for avoiding the questions put to him and telling journalists what to focus on. Newsnight editor Lewis Goodall commented on Twitter that the press conference set up via Zoom was no substitute for in-person questioning, as ministers are able to skip people they do not like. Columnist Dan Wootton also wrote, "Utterly despicable the way Matt Hancock dismissed Laura Kuenssberg's question without even attempting an answer. Real shame the other journalists didn't follow her lead. This isn't an authoritarian regime, but these days you'd be forgiven for thinking otherwise."